Welcome to Romans, Friends, and Countrymen. This is Allie Pone, class of 75, with writer, producer, and 2018 Academy Award nominee for his script of Mudbound, Virgil Williams, class of 88. Virgil,
Hi.
welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. We definitely want to hear about the Academy Award nomination, but let's start with what led up to that. Let's start with how old you were when you knew you wanted to be a writer.
Quite honestly, there was something it was a short story that I wrote at Latin for a history project. And it was a narrative about a soldier based on we were doing a Vietnam class, a class in the Vietnam War. And there was a narrative about a soldier in that war who survived a battle. And, that was the first time that I realized I could affect or grab somebody with something that I'd put on the page. But I don't think that it manifested into some sort of, I'm a writer. I don't think that there was a sort of, it was the first, there was a spark there. The first time that I realized that I could do what I do professionally, or that I knew that was the sort of trail to blaze for myself, was when it was probably 1992, and I was an intern at Orion Pictures, and it was when Orion Pictures was making movies like Platoon and Dances with Wolves and Silence of the Lambs, and if you were an employee, you got a free movie. They had movie screenings, and you got a free movie. My mind was blown, and you got to bring a friend too. So the day that I read the script for Silence of the Lambs, and then within 2 hours saw the film, that was the first time that I realized I could be a screenwriter.
When you said you were an intern at Orion, what you were interning in what capacity?
So I got rejected from the film school at USC. I got into USC, but I did not get accepted into the film school. So I knew, my junior, senior year, that I was going to need something on my resume when I graduated. So I went out and got internships. And that first internship at Orion Pictures, technically I was working in the merchandising and licensing department. So I did intern stuff. I made copies. I got coffees. I sat and listened. I had access to scripts. So that was really just a sort of sure, I'll come sweep the floors. Just let me come see how Orion Pictures work, and it works. And I didn't care where I worked. I was just learning the business. And I was in the merchandising and licensing department, a two-person department. They helped teach me about the business. You come out, to Hollywood with, a dollar and a dream. I'm gonna be whatever I'm gonna be. And it's a business. And that's a sort of, you have to sort of become a little hard scrabble, and quickly, to learn that this is a business. And, dreams are great, but this is a business. And that was my first. They were wonderful, wonderful ladies I worked for.
So it sounds like the whole idea of being in the movie or entertainment industry was sort of first before writing. Is that correct?
Well, when I was a kid, I was an actor. I was cast in a movie called The Blues Brothers, which shot in Chicago, which is a classic. It's now it's become an iconic film. And it was those 3 days on set in Chicago. That's when I really knew, like, this is for me. As a matter of fact, I had a moment at the Oscar luncheon that was quite profound. I'm sitting talking to my wife, and we're talking to the co-director and co-writer of Coco, Adrian. Lovely, lovely movie, lovely, lovely man. And then I see a man named John Landis walking across the room, and John Landis directed The Blues Brothers.
Right.
And I said to my wife, "Oh my God, I have to say hello to this man. I have to go introduce myself to this man, because if he doesn't cast me in that movie, I'm not at the Oscars luncheon. I don't know that this is a business. I don't know these things. The fuse doesn't get lit." So I see John, and he's talking to a comedian named Patton Oswalt. and they're having a very in-depth conversation, and I'm waiting for it to end, but it never ends. And and Patton's wife joins the conversation, and I'm sort of hovering. And finally, my wife says, you have to interrupt," because I try not to be that guy. I try and be the change I want to see in the world. Um, so I went up to them and I said, "Excuse me, I'm so sorry to interrupt." And I put my hand on John's shoulder, and he looked at my hand like, "This kid better get his hand off my shoulder fast." And I said, "I'm so sorry to interrupt, Patton. You're hosting the Writers Guild Awards, and I've been nominated for a Writers Guild Award. We have these little name tags where, it says Virgil Williams, Mudbound nominee." And I said, "I wrote Mudbound." And Patton goes, "Oh my God, Mudbound. I'll see you in a week or so at the Writers Guild Awards." And I said, "John, I had to come up and say hi to you because however many years ago, you cast me in the Blues Brothers. I was one of the orphans in the orphanage, and you cast me. And if you don't cast me in this movie, I don't become a screenwriter." And he looked at my hand on his shoulder and he said, "You just saved the picture." And I took that to mean like, you just said the only thing that could have given you an excuse to put your hand on my shoulder. I could not have come up with a better thing myself as an excuse to allow you to have your hand on my shoulder. And Patton goes, "Oh my God, you were in the Blues Brothers? You guys catch up." So we chit chat for a second, and he looks at me, John Landis, and he goes, "You have the same face. Your face is exactly the same. Come here." And he drags me over to his wife, and his wife is a governor of the Academy. She's a costumer. She's a former nominee.
Oh, cool.
And so if she's not a member of the Academy, John Landis isn't even there that day. If she's not been nominated years ago, he's not even there that day. And he puts me in front of his wife and he goes, "Tell her the story." And I tell her the story about if he doesn't cast me, I'm not in this room. And in the middle of it, I start crying. I can't hold them. I can't. I say it just like this. I can't hold them. They're coming. I can't stop them. But if he doesn't cast me, I'm not here today. And she hugs me, and there's another older woman there, and she gives me a tissue. But for me, that was a profound full circle moment of affirmation that all started in Chicago.
Wow, that is some story. That
Great
is
story,
great.
right? Yeah, it's really quite. Every time I think about it, I get, I just feel so blessed. I feel, not for lack of hard work and great education and all that, but I just feel so blessed.
That's amazing. So, how did you first break into? I mean, I know you said you were an intern at Orion, but then how did you get into, like, I saw that you started out writing for TV.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? Because I know there are so many talented people that try, and there are very few that actually make it. So
Yeah.
how did you break in?
I I stayed here. That's actually not true. I left. I went back to Chicago for a while, gave up, and then came back. I didn't stop. That's really the key. The ones that don't make it are the ones that stop. And there was a time where I went, I'm gonna go get a career, and I went back to Chicago and tried to be corporate, and it didn't. It's not who I am. I was a writer's assistant on a show called Charlie Grace, which was an ABC show which came and went lightning fast. It was a Mark Harmon show, and I came in on a Friday, and they said the show's canceled. Your last day's Monday. I ran out of money. I was delivering food downtown, LA. My actress girlfriend left me. I gave up, and I went back home to Chicago. I started working for Viacom. Viacom was trying to open up these massive sort of retail establishments all over the country, and there was one in Chicago, the Viacom store. Yeah. And I ran publicity-driven special events for them for a time, because it was really the only thing my entertainment experience, the only job my entertainment experience could get me. My entertainment experience couldn't get me a corporate job, because I was a writer's assistant. And so that division of Viacom folded, and I ended up with a severance package, and for the first time in my life, I had time and money at the same time. And I'd run into a friend from Latin who had moved to Paris. Courtney Kolar was her name. And she said to me, "If you're ever in Paris, you have a place to stay." And I was looking through the newspaper one day, because there were newspapers back then. You remember them too.
I still get them, actually, but yes.
And yeah, I can't read off the screen. It doesn't stay in my brain. I need the paper.
Me too.
there was an ad for a round trip ticket to Paris for $350, and I took off and I went and stayed with Courtney in Paris for about 2 weeks. And I woke up. I woke up in a little town called Caen. I was walking on the ramparts of a castle built by William the Conqueror, and and I had an epiphany. The question I heard was, "Where's your castle?" And what I took that to mean was, what are you going to leave behind for some kid to walk on 1,000 years later, so he or she can get inspired? And then I heard was, you're a writer, and that's the gift you got, like it or not, and using it's the gift you give back. So that's what I decided. But that's when I decided, when I go back to the States, I'm going to wait tables all summer. Anything that does not fit in the Honda is not coming. I'm giving away all my winter stuff because I won't need it anymore. And then I drove back to LA, and I kept writing. So when I broke in I wrote a spec, which is when you want to be a TV writer back in the day, you had to write a spec script, which is a copy, your version of an episode. Not so de rigueur anymore. It's not really the thing anymore, but that's what you had to do then. In France, I also decided in that moment I was going to go back and be a TV writer. I had fallen in love with television drama because there were shows on the air like The X-Files, like The Sopranos, like ER. All these shows were on the air. So, and I sort of took all my dream energy and put it into a sort of focus point, which was be a TV writer. So that Soprano spec and got me an agent, which is the first mountain you have to climb because you can't get a job without an agent. You can't get an agent without a job. So good luck. But it got me an agent, and I was lucky enough to go have a great meeting with Joel Cerno and Bob Cochran, the creators of 24, and they hired me on the first season of 24. So that's how I got into TV.
Wow.
Long story long.
Great story. Let's fast forward, and I was wondering how you came to write the script for Mudbound.
My television career was outstanding. I was working all the time, but I had always wanted to be a two-sport athlete, so to speak. I'd always wanted to write movies as well, and I also want to adapt books because I see all these beautiful movies and they're based on novels. And I sat down with a book agent, and she's a wonderful, wonderful lady. And she asked me what kind of stories I like, and I'm half black, half Puerto Rican, went to Latin in Chicago, so stories of identity and race have always fascinated me. I ran over some other themes that I'm enamored with, and he sent me a stack of books, like it's about 2 feet high, and Mudbound was the third one, and I stopped reading because I knew it felt like a responsibility. I was a new father at the time, and that's how the book found me. And that's the other thing. That book found me. It didn't feel like I found it, even though I was on an active search. It felt like it found me, and I just knew it. It was one of those things that had to be done.
Interesting. You said that you felt like the book found you. I know what you mean by that feeling, but I've also read that the road to getting it made into a movie was not an easy one. Can you share some of the challenges and how you overcame them?
Well, the biggest challenge I think was, initially, well, first of all, it requires a daisy chain of miracles for any film to get made. For any film to get made. The biggest challenge initially was, it's a period piece about the Jim Crow South, and this was before movies like 12 Years a Slave landed and made impact. It was even before shows like Empire sort of changed the zeitgeist and made impact. So everybody was terrified of it. Faith is how how I personally got through that. It's sort of an undying belief in the material. Then after Dee Reese got a hold of it and really took ownership of the script like a director has to do, it went to a whole other level, which is what good material does. It can only go if it's hard to mess it up if it's undeniably good. So I think it was that, and we were lucky enough to get a group of producers who shared that belief. Teamwork makes the dream work, and if you can assemble a group of people that share a belief, there is not much you can't do.
Amazing, great. So then, how did you learn that you and Dee Rees, your co-writer and the director, were nominated for the script?
For the Oscar.
Yeah.
Well, we woke up. I mean, we woke up that morning to watch the announcement because we'd been in the conversation since January, since the film premiered, which was 2017 into the first 3 months of 2018 was just a mind-blowing year for me because the second the movie came out in Sundance, we were in the conversation and we stayed in the conversation. So my daughter set her alarm. She's like, "Oh no, we're getting up," and we woke up, and me and my two daughters and my wife were all on our bed, huddled around my phone.
What time was this in the morning? Just so everyone knows.
5:30 in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, it was at 5:30 in the morning, because they have to do it for the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom lives in China, so we had her Skyped in too. So we had two screens, and she was watching it too, and she was actually a couple seconds ahead of us. So we had to put a pillow over her because she kept going, "Oh yes," or "Oh no," like she kept, "No, we can't." And so we watched the announcement, and for my oldest daughter, when the movie premiered, she was 10, and I insisted on bringing her to Sundance. My wife heard we were going to Sundance, and if you got kids, she heard that. She was like, "Great, weekend away from the kids." And then I did the math, and I was like, "Oh wait, no, we actually have to bring them because for 70% of Isabel's life, and for all of Sophia's life, I have been working on and or dreaming about this film. And they don't do what we say, they only do what we do. So they have to see for themselves what hard work and faith, like I was talking about, and tenacity manifest." So we took them to Sundance. Then the premiere, I had not seen the film. This was the first time I'd even seen the film, was at that premiere. And I brought my oldest because she knew when I went to New Orleans to go see it get shot. So she was tracking all this stuff. And we watched the movie, and we get a standing ovation, and all I can do is hug her and hug my wife and keep saying, "We did it, we did it, we did it," and tears are coming. And then when she meets, after the screening, she meets the director of her father's film, and she is a fierce, openly gay, black woman, and in my little girl's head, now that is the visual archetype of what a film director is. Not some man with a shaggy haircut and a scarf, not some white man, might I add,
Right.
But that is what it is. So these things, this was, I can't place any value. These things are invaluable. So the whole ride, the whole year for her. So that's why she was like, no, we're setting the alarm to watch the announcements. And Mudbound was the last one because it was alphabetical.
Yeah.
Tiffany Haddish could not pronounce Scott Neustadter's and Michael Weber's name, and it felt like it took 10 minutes to read those names. And they got to Mudbound, and I just screamed like I'd scored a touchdown. And my oldest, we have a video of this, my oldest folded into the bed and put her face in a pillow, and she started crying. Just overwhelmed with emotion. And then I folded over her, and then my little one, who was only 6, climbed on top of me because we're all crying. So it was like a daddy sandwich. So that's how we found out. And then we go, "Oh my God, my mom!" And we had to pull her off the pillows, and she was crying too on the Skype.
What was it like to attend the awards?
so fun, out of body. I mean, the whole process is really out of body and completely surreal. I went to one party where I saw Angelina Jolie playing Jenga. I think it was Jenga with the cast of Stranger Things. Was introduced to Jacqueline Bisset, who had not seen the film, but told me she was going to see it the next day. And I said, "Will you be at the party?" She goes, "Of course I will." And she goes, "I'll come find you." And I was like, "Sure you will, Jacqueline Bisset. You won't remember who I am." And then the next day, Jacqueline Bisset came through a crowd, beelined straight to me, and gave me a hug and told me how wonderful she thought the film was. Moments like this. I mean, being at the Vanity Fair party, seeing Wiz Khalifa outside smoking a giant joint. I mean, like, it's like a series of just crazy moments. But it was magical. and Steven Spielberg is 2 rows ahead of me, and John Williams is 1 row behind me, and Steven Spielberg walks up to John Williams and says, "Hey, Maestro," and Guillermo del Toro is crying as he hugs Steven Spielberg after he wins the Best Director Oscar. It's just an incredible affirmation, an incredible. The night itself even was an affirmation. It's the Oscars red carpet. It's the Super Bowl of awards shows. I mean, it's the spectacle is exactly what you'd think it is, and everybody's just right there. And it's I'd like to go back. I highly recommend it.
I highly think you will.
Thank you.
Well, you mentioned that a story that you wrote at Latin was the first time that you realized that you could be a writer, that you started thinking about being a writer. Was there anything else at Latin that you felt was might have influenced you or inspired you in terms of your career?
Oh, certainly. I mean, what Latin taught me was how to learn. That's what Latin taught me. Of course, how to manage my time and do all that stuff, because you've got, it's a mountain of homework to do. So you're sort of forced into that position. But it taught me how to learn. It taught me how to attack a problem, and it taught me how to open my mind and learn a thing, and so that you can attack a problem. I came to Latin as a sophomore, and was one of the few minorities. Was was a bit of an outsider, but at Latin I didn't feel like I was ever on the outside, and I learned that I can do anything I wanted to do. If I hadn't gone to Latin, I would not be where I am. I wouldn't have the skills. I would not have had because there are certain, I think, hardwiring skills that need to be introduced at a certain time. And if I had not gotten those skills at that time, I don't know what would have become of me.
As a Latin alum, you've been very involved, and you've been extremely generous with your time, like today, and sharing your experiences with current Latin students and other alums. Why have you chosen to do that?
Gosh, that is a great question. I feel like it's my responsibility. I also feel like, I'm a father now, so I have a greater, my eyes are much more keen to the cruelties of the world and to the vicissitudes of life. And I feel like it is I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed in my career, in the people that I have around me that give me love on a daily basis, and my children. It would be almost sinful of me if that, it would to not give back somehow.
Well, one last question, and that's what's next? What are you working on now? If you're allowed to share
an overall deal at Universal Television. What's that?
If you're allowed to share it, I know that there's a lot.
Oh, of course. No, I absolutely am. I'm in an overall deal at Universal Television right now. So I just made a push. I had a couple pilots that I sold. One I sold to NBC, and one I sold to Fox. And this Hollywood is so slap and tickle. They called me and they said, "Congratulations on your Oscar nomination. We're not picking up either of your shows." So I am now in an effort on the television side to pursue some cable shows. I'd like to do some really cool cable stuff, because I've been in the network side of things my whole career. So there's a couple projects that I'm going after on that end. On the film side, I'm adapting another book for Sony, for a producer by the name of Todd Black, and for Denzel Washington. And he may direct. If I don't screw up the script, Denzel come direct. But it's a book called A Journal for Jordan, and it is a beautiful, beautiful love story. Have you read this book?
I've read about it. I haven't had a chance to read it. And when should we expect that out?
The book is out, but I will be finished with the first draft of the script, God willing, in about 8 weeks. And if we get green lights and blue skies, we could be shooting maybe by the end of the year, but more likely next year. So hopefully 2019 release, perhaps.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye out for that. Thank you, Virgil, for taking the time to talk and share with us.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Happy Latin Day to everyone. Go Romans.
Go Romans.
Go
Thank you, thank you,
Romans.
thank you.